Hello everybody, Gerone Wright here again, and I thank you for joining me on my Geronification YouTube channel. Okay, in this video, I'm going to be prophesizing how our world will end. Okay, and keep in mind that there are countless of theologians, who else, prophesizers or prophecists that actually have came up with their own ideas, their own imaginative thoughts of how our world will end. Okay, it's my position in this video that I will bring to you the most logical and sensible way, above all of those who were there before me that have prophesized or theorized how our world will end, and how this will be more logical and more acceptable to you, and it would not even need a scientific verification, because history in our planetary solar system here actually supports everything that I am actually stating. Okay, so I'm going to give it to you how I see it, and plus my vision through my paranormal sense of awareness and being, how I've actually arrived at this in the first place. Okay, now we all know that we have the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Earth. In previous videos, I stated that these planets are rotating on the Sun as a piece of meat on a rotisserie in an open fire. Okay, how I arrive at this is that when you put a piece of meat on a rotisserie stick and turn it around over an open flame, it is slowly being cooked to eventually it's cooked all the way through. Well, here you have a form of energy. Here you have organic bodies in the form of planets. And what are they doing? They are circling the open flame, or the flaming source of fired energy, radioactive energy. Now, here's an egg. Okay, and I put spots on it, and I'll explain those spots later. This is an egg. If this egg was floating in space from its furthest away state to its closest, let's go with the furthest. Eventually, this egg in orbit with the Sun will be slowly cooked as it becomes closer to the Sun. It's the same thing as if you put this egg in a microwave. You can slowly cook this egg in a microwave for about 1 minute and 40 seconds safely, and boil it at high. After that, as it nears 2 minutes, it will explode. All right. Now, I'm going to come back to that egg. It's my position that as the Sun intensifies on its energy level, even if the Sun remained at its constant rate of energy, emitted out energy, and our world stayed right there in its orbit, there was no closeness in the distance. It's my position that the constant radiated energy of the Sun, period, is what is actually destroying these planets in line. Now, I stated that this guy would explode in the microwave past 1 minute and 40 seconds. He'll boil from inside out. Now, I draw these dark spots on here, these brown spots on there. What these dark spots represent is that when this guy is heating up in the microwave, prior to the point of him exploding, or this egg exploding, brown areas appear beneath the surface of the egg, which is causing the weakening points for where the structural cracks begin, and it splits open, and just prior to it, it explodes from inside out. Now, I'm going to put that egg back down again. Now, let's look at the history of that in our solar system. Mercury and Venus, which is in close proximity to the sun, it has been verified that they have blown holes in their atmospheres. Isn't that just what I stated about this egg? They have open gaping holes in their atmospheres. Atmospheric layers. Let's say that. It's my position that these planets elevated to a heat level from within after the water evaporation process escalated of these worlds to a point to where the heat, the intensity of the core of these planets blew a hole in the atmospheric layerings in a pressure relief valve sense of way. Now, for those of you that do not know nothing about a pressure relief valve, your hot water heater in your homes have a pressure relief valve. If you go into the basement of your home and look at your hot water heater, that little rod on the side and that little lever up on top is what actually allows for the hot water heater to vent off pressure in the event that the pressure in that heater got to a point to where it could not contain itself. It keeps it from erupting, blowing up. So it allows for the water to expand in a controlled scenario. Well, it's my position that Mercury and Venus, in a sort of sense, blew their lids. Their pressure relief valves allowed for, instead of the core of the planets to erupt and blow up, this is a process where they blew a hole in their atmospheric layerings to let pressure off of the center core of the planet. And this is why these planets have gaping holes in their atmospheric layerings, which science has already proven that to be. Now, and the temperatures are at such extreme heights. Now, I'm going to go back to my egg. What is happening? Imagining that this egg had been cooked to the point to where it has these brown blotches on it. Let's go to our world. Here's a satellite image of Earth. Our planet is what, 87-90% body of water, and this percentage of land which is shown being brown, showing you that the exposed land areas of our world are being changed to the point to where they start to begin looking like this. This is one image of a desert prior to it ultimately becoming like this. This is a full-blown image of a desert. Again here. Images of a desert. So, what is happening? Well, you see, people, we all know that the hostile environments of deserts in themselves emit a high radiated level of heated energy. We all know that these areas or sand is utilized to create and make glass. We all know that glass and sand sends off or emits off or reflects or creates a repellent or a reflected energy that is almost similar to that of being like a magnifying glass. It's my position that as areas in our world, this is another image of that of our world from space. It's my position that as areas in our world through a cancerous like effect, which is killing our world, surfaces which are exposed, creating zones like this, hostile areas like this. It's my position that these areas are affecting our atmosphere in an adverse way. It's my position that areas like this that are being created are identical scenarios to what's being created within that energy, from that microwave energy, from where its core is being microwaved from inside out, and those brown areas appear on that egg just before weakened areas, before the weakened fissures from below appear, and it splits open. It's my position that what is happening is that these brown areas that appear here on our desert surfaces, those cancer-like spots, create a competing energy with that of the radiated energy coming in from the sun into our world. And there is almost like a gamma-like explosion that occurs once these areas become large enough to not just compete with the sun on the surface of the earth, but in the atmospheric layerings of our planet. And once these competitive scenarios take place, the areas in our world that are going up against the sun with its competing energies calls for a chemical-like explosion, a nuclear explosion that will cause for the eruption and degradation of our planet's atmospheric layerings, thereby blowing a hole in Earth's atmospheric layerings in the way that it had already happened with the planet Mercury and Venus. It's my position that these areas of our world, which we describe them as inhabitable and hostile places, are hot spots that appear just like with our egg in a microwave. Hot spots that appear in a chemical reaction from where the nucleus of this guy, the center core of this guy, is heated to the sense to where what is happening on the inside is shown out on the outside prior to the explosion taking place. So people, are you with me? Sure you are, because nothing can make for better sense than what I am actually describing to you. This areas in our world exposed like they are creating competitive, reflective energies, which are in fact conflicting with the energy of our sun. Which is being emitted down, and there's going to be a collision that take place in the atmospheric layers of our world, where an explosion will take place on a scale of a nuclear explosion, probably like nothing no one can possibly ever imagine. Now, through my paranormal experience and encounter, just like I brought you this remarkable discovery, you have those that prophesize and theorize and have came up with some of the most seemingly compelling end of the world scenarios that you could possibly ever want to imagine. I believe the worst by far being that of our world being hit with an asteroid or with a meteorite of a scale that would actually end it. When I take the elements of our world, the scenarios of our world, objects such as the egg from our refrigerator and the microwave appliance that sits in most people's homes today, and give you a more sensible and logical explanation how our world will end. Through my paranormal experience and encounter, how I can do this, people, is that I actually can see, I can sense through a multidimensional sense of awareness all of this that I've just described as being true and accurate and going to happen. Now, just as I showed you this scenario, I can tell scientists, I can tell our world leaders how this problem needs to be solved and how it could be rectified before it's too late. You see, there are several things that I have envisioned that happens. Okay, now here's one scenario. Now, I'm not going to tell you how this problem can be fixed, but I can tell you how what's going to happen in order for the planet to what the planet is going to do next to rectify this situation. When the planet is threatened on itself, its own antibody, its own immune system will come to the rescue of creating an alternate scenario which would cure this problem. Just like we have thermostats in our bodies which would cause us to sweat, which would cause us to react to an adverse reaction which is threatening our bodies, our planet has. Our planet, to offset this, which we call global warming, will begin to melt its glaciers, to rise sea levels, to cause for bodies of water to go to the much needed areas that is causing this overheating of the central core of the planet. And this is what's almost is happening now. This is why you have torrential rains and torrential floodings. That is just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, as they are melting. And this is what global warming is all about. In the most extreme scenario, what will happen is that these scenarios where the planet is overheating and it needs to counteract what is happening in the most extreme areas, in our most extreme deserts, our world will rectify itself and correct itself by tilting on its axis to douse the areas, the hot spots in its body that is causing an alarming scenario at its core. Another scenario: nuclear reactors. Nuclear plants rely on water to keep these reactors cool and from running away and overheating and thereby exploding. It's my position that the behavior of our bodies and what happens with us are the same scenarios which is happening with our world that is in itself alive. And with the senses and the control of mind in itself to cure itself of what all I just described. And when it can no longer do that, when our planet has evaporated, has utilized all of its cooling fluid, which is my position, this fluid is here for our planet, like radiator coolant in your car, that is there for the cooling system of your car to keep it from overheating. It's my position when the fluid levels, as they lower and lower and lower, because the water is leaving our planet, people. It's not coming in. It's being evaporated out through the evaporation process of our world. So, once the levels of our world's water are at a level, an alarming level, beneath themselves, where this planet can no longer sustain what is happening to itself, causing its surfaces to dry up and these competitive energies with the sun, then what happens, people, is that a hole will be blown in our atmospheric layers. And just like in the scenario where that microwaved egg went past that 1 minute and 40 seconds, it exploded. But before that egg exploded, it started showing us brown burn splotches underneath the skin, underneath the crust of the egg, which actually could be shown on the surface just before it erupted. It's my position that these brown spots we call deserts are areas that have been microwaved through challenging energies which came from beneath the Earth's surface, from the planet's core, from above the planet's surface, which is that of the sun, which is causing deserts in our world and deadly hot spots, which will ultimately be the demise of our world. The planet can only rectify itself at so many points. Once it reaches past the points to where the oceanic levels of our world cannot be moved by the body of our world, which senses these hot spots and which rectifies it. This is why they send water. These floodings, these earthquakes, these cracks, these openings. Look at our body. If we get, when something happens on the skin or the surface of our body's skin, our body sends out all of its senses and all of it's all in its consciousness, tries to rectify that situation. It throws a crust on it. It tries to wet it. It first throws a crust on it. If you get an open gaping wound, it depends on the burn. Let's say you get a burn. It throws a bubble on top of it. Immediately that bubble fills up with pus. Then that pussy area turns into a scab, a hardened scab, and then the scab falls off. This is the scenario with our body. Now, look at this as a crusty, scabby area. The same exact way. Look at this in the scenario of our body. And this is what is happening. Now, let's take our body and let's run the water out of our body. We don't have no water. When you run the water out of your body, you begin to overheat. You begin to sweat. You sweat to the point of where you don't have no sweat, and you dehydrate. And you die, eventually. Now, look at it on a larger scale, with that being like our planet, the enormity of what is actually happening here. The planet, the center, its defense is of a much larger magnitude, which will cause the scenario that I've told you through the chemistry of our world's deserts, which are competing with the almighty powerful energies of the sun. These areas will create a magnifying glass scenario that will be so intense and so immense that they will not just compete on the surface of this desert anymore. That the energy that is emitted off the desert, which we know is a very high energy because it's an inhospitable place, you can't even survive there. So the energy that the sun is reflecting back onto this surface is reflecting it back at the sun, and eventually what it is like is it's like two highly radiated forces of power that are pushing at each other and competing at itself. It's like you taking a magnifying glass and reflecting the sun energy back onto itself. And now in the meeting area of these matches, these reflective matches are not taking place here. They begin to happen higher and higher and higher and higher until they reach the point of space where there is an explosion and a hole is blown in your atmospherical area. Now, I'm going back to this stuff. Mercury and Venus have scientifically been found to have gaping holes in their atmospherical areas. You have one planet, two planets, have gaping holes in their atmospherical areas. The third planet, which is Earth, which has a larger body of water than these two planets, is right now sustaining its atmospherical areas because its defense against them is that this planet still has its body of water. Whereas these planets, over that period of time, have been been relieved of their water, so to speak. It's been exhausted. It's been evaporated. Once they lost their defensive power, the atmosphere's layers gave in. They submitted. And that's why there's a hole in this guy's atmospheric layers and a hole in this guy's atmospheric layers. And ultimately what will happen is that these planets will explode once they are completely to a point to where they can no longer take the intensity of the sun's energy. They will explode like your egg does when you overcook it in a microwave. Now, said that, I want to go back to my position that Mercury was the first planet to contain life in our solar system prior to it being completely evaporated of all of its water. As that life forms, intelligent life forms, realized what was happening, those life forms jumped over to the next planet in line, which was Venus. On Venus, this knowledge was known from this previous event here on Mercury. So these life forms, now in unison from this planet, has now been contaminated with the life forms that is already on this planet. So new mutations were created. All of those life forms must realize that this was going to happen again, that this world, that Mercury, which lost its atmospheric layers, which caused them to be on Venus in the first place. Prior to this happening to them again, they say, hey, let's go to Earth. Let's go to the next planet in line, because we know that these planets are frozen balls of masses. Masses of frozen ice and water, which as they come closer to the sun, they are being thawed out. So Earth right now is enjoying a scenario that Mercury and Venus once had. So now we have where there's this intelligence that is suppressed here on Earth, and NASA and ancient rooted religion and ancient rooted royalty are shielding and disguising the fact that this knowledge does not exist, and they are flying blindly throughout space trying to find other worlds like Earth. I say to you all, go fuck yourself. The reason for being so is because if this is the case, why would you be wasting so much valuable time flying to the moon and going to Mars, which you have already deemed to be a desolated place and to be more hostile than our own planet's deserts? It's my position that Mars has yet to actually be introduced to an atmosphere, because the frozen properties beneath the surface, which I am telling you that the surface of Mars is nothing but a collection of space materials, space junk and rock that is covering that of a frozen ball. And beneath that, as this planet Mars becomes more and more subjected to the energy of the sun, the chemistry beneath what is being shown, what we see, will produce the atmosphere of Mars, and eventually the scenario of Mars will be similar to that of what we are experiencing here on Earth right now. So, it's my position that Mercury was the past, Venus was the past, Earth is the present, and Mars and beyond is the future. As these worlds are colliding with the energy of the sun and losing their atmospheric layers as the result, the ending result, the life forms are doing and behaving in a way in which one would expect planet hopping. And this is why we are now looking to Mars to create or colonize on. People, My name is Gerone Wright. You're watching my Geronification channel. And through my genuine paranormal experience and encounter, I can show you and prophesize in a way that no one can ever do. It's my position that what I offer, if you want to call it a theory, if you want to call it a prophecy, I like to call it actuality, because you know why? What I am describing here is a factual scenario which is happening, and it is true. And the reason why you can accept this, is because it is a logical scenario that you can see as happening without the backing of scientific proof. And the reason why I can do that, where no others can, for hundreds and hundreds of years, people have been trying to figure out. And here you have me claiming to have a paranormal experience and encounter, describing to you a scenario happening in our solar system and other solar systems too, by the way, people, that makes for perfect logical sense. But not just that, it makes for better sense than anything that scientists have offered up to date, or theologians have offered up to date, or prophesizers or prophecies has offered up to date. Everything that I am describing is for better sense than anything you will ever come to hear or know, because it is factual. Now, the same power that allows for me to see what is happening, the same power that is allowing for me to bring these amazing videos to you and describe to you what is going on, is the same power that allows me to see how we can fix the scenario, put a band-aid on it, so to speak. How we can make this reverse a process that is happening, which creates a almost like a check valve, a climate control, if you will, on our world that will retard the effects, or the accelerated effects, of what is happening. When I say retard, I mean slow down to a rate of speed to where the life on our planet will not be as highly affected as it is now by the accelerated speed of in the way that all of this is occurring. Now, before I go, I'm going to tell you this. The competitive energies that I am telling you about between our deserts, which is acting as a magnifying glass, reflecting the sun's energy back upon itself, and this battle is taking place in the most dangerous area that it could possibly be taken in. And you know where that is? In a world that is inhabited, and well, has habitat. It's my position that these chemistries are causing an ill effect on not just that of our planet's body, but in our own bodies as well. These competitive energy forces is what is driving key behind the extinction of living kind, which is in our world. Now, guess which creatures are exempt, in a way, so to speak, from this? Guess which creatures that are exempt? Creatures that thrive in the freshwater bodies and in the saltwater bodies of our planet. And this is why people, that those creatures, the whales, the great whites, and other oceanic life, and alligators that live for so many millions and millions of years, that have survived all of the other creatures of our world, they're surviving because they have a membrane that protects them from what is happening on the surfaces of our world. That membrane is their protective water bodies that shield them from these competitive energies. So, if I have your attention, I want to tell you people that you need to get me viral. You need to get me mainstream. You need to get me the scientific backing and team that I need so I can show you how we can make our planet work again. Not work for against us in the elements that we are battling against now, the earthquakes, the tornadoes, the volcanic eruptions, the faults, all of that. I can show you that there was an ancient knowledge in place that actually competed with these scenarios that I am describing. And I can tell you of not one, but many scenarios that can reverse this. So, my name is Gerone Wright. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm not asking for you to do anything. Because you know what? Naturally, I am already catering to your imagination because you know that everything that I am saying to you makes for perfect sense. And I am bringing it to you in a perfect sense scenario that not even you can deny. So those of you out there that are in college, tell your college scholar, your professor, to see my video. Those of you that have a friend in NASA or any other high governmental body that is in the study of space and of Earth, those of you that have a geologist friend, tell them. Say, look at Jerome's video. Those people are spinning their wheels because there are only a select few of people that is privileged to this knowledge of realizing what is happening in our world. And those select few of people are using your weekly pay, because you're paying through taxes and surcharges, to create an escape ticket for themselves, because they can't take everybody in our world and put them on that flying space colonized space vessel in space, or on that colony of space explorers that's going to be on Mars. Your ass is not going, but yet they're using your tax dollars to fund their escape. Now, these are the same entities, or should I say, the ancestral entities that have done this before, because they escaped from Venus, and prior to that, from Mercury. But yet they tell you that they don't understand what is happening here with Venus and what is happening with Mercury. Or they even tell you that they don't even understand the history of our world. But the same group of people understand perfectly what is happening outside of our world. They can tell you what is happening in space, how space happened through the Big Bang and all of that. Well, those theories are theories that are developed in mind because they're the best theories that pull the blinders over your eyes. But people, I'm telling you that the better theory, the better factual, the facts, should I say, the actual is in everything that I'm describing here to you in this video. These organic bodies that we call planets, as they are slowly being microwaved by the energy of the sun, they are the core of these so-called planets are being heated up to the points, and as they burn away through their inner core to the outer areas of their own body, that emitted energy create the scenarios for each life form to come into play. And this is what is happening in our world. Mars has just been exposed to this because Mars is just a collective body. This is what, you know what is happening? Mars is actually being prepared to become the next Earth. And then as Mars is looking in I don't know what you want to say, 400 million space years or light years, I don't know how you want to measure the time in space, but as Mars is becoming to look in a way or behave in a way and sustain life forms in a way that Earth is, then Jupiter will become to start looking like that of the body of Mars. You get the picture, people? This is the scenario that is happening because of this. The closer one becomes, a body becomes to the sun, it is cooked on a rotisserie. So what you can expect, people, through common sense knowledge, that whatever is happening here right now on Earth has already happened in the past on Mercury and Venus. And the life forms from those planets escaped onto each other, and the contamination thereof in unison are now what we call ourselves, Earthlings, and in the contamination of all. So we are a space byproduct of all of these three planets here. And eventually, since we are now contaminating Mars, it will be all four. And then, and so forth and so with. And then Jupiter. You see, evolution, in order for you to get from point A to point B to point C to point D, and point E, you have to take baby steps. Our survival is only based on our proximity with the sun. This is our lifeline. The sun. So you can't take a quantum leap from Mercury to Jupiter and think you're going to live. Evolution is based on our solar evolution is based on the baby steps. It only makes for logical sense that now they want you to think that space aliens can come from billions and billions of space light years away and land on our world and create life forms. This doesn't happen that way, people. The way it happens is you take baby steps like your child walking. You come from the closest planets first and expand out. That's what that's all about. My name is Gerone Wright. You're watching my Geronification channel. You're watching my Geronification channel. And people, if you like this video, share it. How I see it, and plus my vision through my paranormal sense of awareness and being, how I've actually arrived at this in the first place. Okay, now we all know that we have the sun, Mercury, Venus, and Earth. In previous videos I stated that these planets are rotating on the sun as a piece of meat on a rotisserie in an open fire. Okay, how I arrive at this is that when you put a piece of meat on a rotisserie stick and turn it around over an open flame, it is slowly being cooked to eventually it's cooked all the way through. Well, here you have a form of energy. Here you have organic bodies in the form of planets. And what are they doing? They are circling the open flame, or the flaming source of fired energy, radioactive energy. Now, here's an egg in their atmospheres. Isn't that just what I stated about this egg? They have open gaping holes in their atmospheres. Atmospheric layerings. Let's say that. It's my position that these planets elevated to a heat level from within after the water evaporation process escalated of these worlds to a point to where the heat, the intensity of the core of these planets blew a hole in the atmospheric layerings in a pressure relief valve sense of way. Now, for those of you that do not know nothing about a pressure relief valve, your hot water heater in your homes have a pressure relief valve. If you go into the basement of your home and look at your hot water heater, that little rod on the side and that little lever up on, okay, and I put spots on it, and I'll explain those spots later. This is an egg. If this egg was floating in space from its furthest away state to its closest, let's go with the furthest. Eventually, this egg in orbit with the sun will be slowly cooked as it becomes closer to the sun. It's the same thing as if you put this egg in a microwave. You can slowly cook this egg in a microwave for about 1 minute and 40 seconds safely and boil it at high. Before, after that, as it nears 2 minutes, it will explode. All right. Now, I'm going to come back to that egg. It's my position that as the sun intensifies on its energy level, even if the sun remained at its constant rate of energy, emitted out energy, and our world stayed right there in its orbit, there was no closeness in the distance. It's my position that the constant radiated energy of the sun, period, is what is actually destroying these planets in line. Now, I stated that this guy would explode in the microwave past 1 minute and 40 seconds. He'll boil from inside out. Now, I draw these dark spots on here, these brown spots on there. What these dark spots represent is that when this guy is heating up in the microwave, prior to the point of him exploding, or this egg exploding, brown areas appear beneath the surface of the egg, which is causing the weakening points for where the structural cracks begin and it splits open, and just prior to it, it explodes from inside out. Now, I'm going to put that egg back down again. Now, let's look at the history of that in our solar system. Mercury and Venus, which is in close proximity to the sun, it has been verified that they have blown holes. Hello everybody, Gerone Wright here again, and I thank you for joining me on my Geronification YouTube channel. Okay, in this video, I'm going to be prophesizing how our world will end. Okay, and keep in mind that there are countless of theologians, who else, prophesizers or prophecists that actually have came up with their own ideas, their own imaginative thoughts of how our world will end. Okay? It's my position in this video that I will bring to you the most logical and sensible way, above all of those who were there before me that have prophesized or theorized how our world will end and how this will be more logical and more acceptable to you, and it would not even need a scientific verification, because history in our planetary solar system here actually supports everything that I am actually stating. Okay, so I'm going to give it to you how